All right. Looks like our crowd's hopping on, so we'll give them just a second to jump on here with us. All right. Thanks everybody for hopping on. Thanks for hopping on with me, Jason. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and kick this thing off. Thank you all so much for hopping on. It's our weekly FAFSA Tennessee Promise Q&A, where we've sort of had a different guest every time. And this week with me, I have Jason C., who works at the state level for the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation, Tennessee Higher Education Commission, just a lot of words. And he does outreach for them. So huge thanks to Jason for coming on. I think most of the state sees Jason as the state's expert on FAFSA. So we have quite the guest, quite the esteemed guest with us today. So I'm going to kick it over to Jason to just do a little bit of an introduction. But for those of you that are hopping on here, remember this is a FAFSA Q&A. So if you have questions about FAFSA, if you have questions about Tennessee Promise, I would say any type of financial aid question really, enter those in the comments or use the questions feature on here and we will answer those at the end. But Jason, if you want to do a quick introduction, that'd be great.
Absolutely, Ben. Thanks for having me. Guys, this may be silly, but this is my first Instagram Live, so this is kind of cool. My name is Jason C. I am the Senior Director of Outreach for TSAC, which is all those long words that Ben said earlier. Again, TSAC, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, and the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. Bottom line, I always say this. When I'm out in public, whether talking to students, parents, professionals, you guys probably know us and know of me more so as, hey, that's the guy that gives me money for college, whether it's from the Hope Scholarship, Tennessee Promise Scholarship, the Reconnect Scholarship. That all of that's administered by our office. And Ben, like you, I am just extremely fortunate and blessed to be able to help and work with families to connect them with these programs. So that's what I do. I help administer Hope and Promise and Reconnect and all of our state aid programs at the state level. And I guess, Ben, segue into the, I also help students with the FAFSA, right?
Right. Yeah, I think Jason has probably told more students about financial aid than anyone in America. I think he might carry that flag. So we've had some exciting news this week. For those of you that are on here, you probably already know because you're proactive in watching a Tennessee Achieves Instagram Live. But if you don't know, the FAFSA deadline was extended. It was previously set for February 1st. The state decided to extend that to give students some additional opportunities to get that done. Jason, do you want to elaborate a little bit on that decision, talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So due to whether it's weather, due to obviously illnesses, that's obviously still prevalent here throughout Tennessee. And I also say, and for those of you who are listening right now, Ben, I don't think our official statement necessarily alluded to this, but I think it's fair for me to say this. Because of FAFSA issues, unfortunately, that a lot of our parents and students have been encountering, guys, that's not you, right? That's not necessarily been myself. That's not our agencies. And again, this is not necessarily to throw shade at FAFSA itself, but unfortunately, the FAFSA application systems is having its challenges. That's probably the politest way to say it right now, Ben.
Sure.
Because of all of these factors, again, weather, illness, and system issues with the FAFSA, we just think it's important to give you guys some extra runway to get that FAFSA done, specifically the 22-23 FAFSA by March 1, so that you can be considered for Tennessee Promise, and then also the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, which is our state grant. Those of you who are Pell Grant eligible, most likely you will also be considered for our state grant, the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, if you get that FAFSA done by March 1. Then that's why we always encourage our students and parents, get that FAFSA in as soon as you can, especially ideally October, November, but in this case, the deadline March 1.
Okay, absolutely. I appreciate you for elaborating on that. So if they saw a recent post, you would see there's a pretty consistent message coming out. But yes, absolutely. I know that I've worked with some students that have definitely encountered some issues in terms of submitting the FAFSA and some challenges. So I think it will definitely buy us some additional time to help those students troubleshoot who may be running into some of those roadblocks. So talk to me a little bit about what the state has planned over the next couple of weeks? I know that that might be in flux and may still be in planning, considering we didn't see this additional month of time. I think it's for us too, it's good because then we can give students more opportunities to engage with resources. So talk to me a little bit about what TSAC's planning over the next couple of weeks to help students get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I mean, another reason we wanted to connect this way with you guys, and then Ben and myself and our teams. Listen, we're also Team Tennessee, and I know that may be somewhat corny to say, but seriously, like Ben representing Tennessee Chiefs, myself representing TSAC, folks, we're all on the same team trying to help you guys with the FAFSA. So, you know, as Ben and his team have done all their stuff throughout the last few months to help you with FAFSA, we're doing the same, such as if you are a high school senior, parent, school counselor right now, listen to this. Many of you know a lot of my staff is doing in-person workshops still. But then for those of you who may be unable, or maybe at home because of illness or whatever, you know, we have virtual opportunities. Specifically, Ben, we have the Fafsa Hotline. That's the one that, quote, we've established last year, 615-350-8668. That's our Fafsa Hotline. So if you run into an issue, you can call it. Now, Ben.
Say that one more time, Jason.
So again, 615-350-8668. That's our Fafsa Hotline. If you call it, it's probably going to go to voicemail because there is a team of us that's monitoring it. But folks, we got a lot of people calling. So if it goes to voicemail, leave your name, leave your number. We'll get back as soon as we can. So we'll promote the FAFSA hotline with you guys. We also, Ben, have that fafsa.help@tn.gov email address as well. Again, fafsa.help@tn.gov, where you can email us questions if you want to. We've been doing FAFSA webinars, Ben. You know, I'll say this, FAFSA webinar attendance has not been as great as it was in the fall semester. So this is that time of year we typically do more of the FAFSA hotline and email. And folks, that's a great compliment to what the Achieves team is doing in terms of the scheduling of appointments, right? So as they schedule appointments with you, they also share the hotline and email with you guys as well, so that, you know, for some reason, whether you can't schedule an appointment with them, you always have and can call us. Also, Ben, we have those FAFSA tutorial videos, right? Where we have recorded 5-minute or less videos taking you through each section of the FAFSA. Folks, within 25 minutes, you can watch those videos as you're doing the FAFSA. And also getting step-by-step instruction of what you need to do. So those are I guess our 3 big resources beyond the in-person stuff that we're
Perfect. Yeah, I think one thing I would say is that you need to go to collegefortn.gov. That's where you're going to access those FAFSA tutorial videos. If you land on that homepage, collegefortn.gov, there's going to be likely many links that are going to take you to FAFSA Frenzy pages to be able to access those webinars. I would say in general that collegefortn.gov website is excellent. It does a lot for connecting you with the resources that you need between TennesseeAchieves.org and collegefortn.org. I don't think you can avoid the help. We're going to pretty much smother you with it.
Yeah. Hey, and not to interrupt you, just to say that you did it right that last time, guys. It's College4TN, FORTN.org.
.org. I'm sorry, collegefortn.org. Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to kind of move in. It's about 10 minutes in. We're going to move into some of the questions that we're receiving. Jason, I'm going to see what we have here.
Yeah.
First question I've got, I'll take this one. I'll take the first one. We normally just kind of popcorn them back and forth. How do I check how many semesters I have left for Tennessee Promise? Well, there's not really a way to check that. It's because there's a 5-semester limit for Tennessee Promise. So it depends on how many semesters you've been enrolled, Autumn. If you've been enrolled, so say right now you're in your 2nd semester of college, that means you have 3 full-time semesters left of Tennessee Promise eligibility. You may be asking that because you probably are in your 4th semester. If I had to guess, you're in your 2nd year of college. In that case, you have an additional semester remaining, You could use that this summer if you wanted to enroll full-time, or you could enroll the following fall. Just note that you got to be enrolled full-time unless you just have a little bit left. So if you do only have 6 hours remaining in your associate's degree, you can appeal and utilize Tennessee Promise for that shortened semester. All right, let's see. I filled out my FAFSA. What else do I have to fill out? I think that's going to be kind of dependent on your situation. More than likely, you need to watch your mandatory webinar. Go to our link in our bio and knock that step out. But DM us, and we'll get on a very specific line for you there.
And Ben, just to amend that, I mean, guys, as y'all are going through your options, especially if you're a high school senior, but even if you're a college student, folks, also make sure you're applying for the scholarships at the college too. And, I feel like what we've been doing for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years now, like whether it's from an Achieves Promise perspective, like I think oftentimes students forget there's other outside scholarships or even internal college scholarships. Make sure you're applying for those as well. Ask your college or ask your school counselor about those opportunities.
Yeah, I think money is left on the table every year at the colleges. From what I know, community colleges especially, there's money just waiting for students to take it. They just need to talk to financial aid to get it. This one student asked why we go live during the school day. Well, it's because this is recorded. So if you're not able to watch the entire thing, you can always go back and watch this, fast forward through to where you jump off and watch the rest later. This will be posted on our feed, so just go grab it there. I'll let you answer this one. Can you still get 2 free years of college if you took a break for a year?
Great question. And Ben, I actually saw that earlier, and I was like, I was like, all right, we got to tackle that one. Guys, unfortunately, you do have to maintain continuous enrollment, right? That's one of the promise requirements, as well as if I have any students who will be eligible for the Hope Scholarship. Once you begin college, you must maintain continuous enrollment, fall, spring, fall, spring, fall, spring, in order to maintain eligibility. So to the question that asked, I will say there is an appeals process that if there was a specific and a reason why the student set out a semester, perhaps due to illness, that's something that can be appealed. That does not guarantee approval. You have to appeal, and then you're at the mercy of the final decision. But it is something that can be appealed. That said, Ben, I think you would say this as well. Folks, remember, like from a promise perspective, that's a last dollar scholarship. So if you're a student that's already getting Pell Grant or Tennessee Student Assistance Award, in one sense, you might still be able to go to college tuition free. So do your FAFSA by March 1 if you haven't. Let's see what other aid, and then if you need to reach out to Ben or I about the appeals process, we can also help you with that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's exactly how I would have answered that. We do have the requirement that you have to start the fall following high school graduation. But again, there is an appeal. If you had a circumstance that was extenuating, that prohibited you from starting, you can pursue that appeal. You would talk to the financial aid office at the college that you're planning to attend, and they'll put you down the right path. All right, this one sounds like it's for you too. So when I filled it out, it said it couldn't finish it. So I'm thinking this means I started the FAFSA, I ran into an error, and I couldn't finish. You probably answered this question 1,000 times a day, but I'll let you answer it here.
So guys, FY, Ben and I kind of did a practice run of this, and one thing he said, he goes, Jason, you might want to have some FAFSA tips. And Ben, here's what I came up with. I came up with patience, and more patience, right? So to any student who has encountered a FAFSA error, or all of a sudden a message that comes up that says FAFSA has encountered an unforeseen whatever. I mean, however they worded it. I mean, there's various types that Ben, you and I are seeing. It really is log out. I would say clear your browser history. Ben, help me on this word. CACHE. Is it cache?
I say cache, but I think it's cache, but I'm not exactly sure. My Southern Appalachian dialect probably messes that up, if I had to guess.
So, anyways, clear that.
Yep.
And then open the browser back up, try again. That's one thing. If you hit the error again, Ben, at that point in time, there is a mobile app. If you go to the App Store, or obviously if you're an Android user, I think it's Google Play. Search for My Student Aid. That's the official FSA, Federal Student Aid FAFSA mobile app. Some families have had more luck with it. Ben, I think your team's seen this. We've seen this as well. Thankfully, within the last, I'm going to say week and a half, the system has been more stable. Not perfect, but more stable. So hopefully, if this was an error that you encountered, let's say in December, first week of January, I'd say go back and try again now. But try deleting the browser history, the cache, and then trying again. And again, if you have some issues, holler at one of us, and we'll try to virtually help you as well if we need to.
Yeah, I found the mobile app was a solution for one of my students who was running into a roadblock with getting the parent signature to go through. We were able to get onto the Student Aid app. It's got to download it. You got to log in with your FSA ID, so you're going to need all of those things. But it actually is in some ways, I think, more straightforward than actually using it on the.
I agree.
All right, let's see. We've got a couple more here. Let's see. Wow. Oh, this is a great comment. It's not a question, but it's a great comment. Not a question, but I graduated from Columbia State last summer. Beyond grateful for how helpful all the scholarships were that were offered. Thank you for all you do. Apply for those scholarships. I'm going to screenshot that and save it.
No, that's awesome. And congratulations, right, Ben? I mean, this is why we work we do, to give you guys that option. I mean, to give you. So.
Yep, that's Tori. Very nice of you.
Yeah.
Let's see. How do you put your parents' information on the FAFSA?
So, all right, FAFSA, 7 sections. All right, sections 1, 2, and 3 is all about the student. Section 3 actually asks 10, 11 dependency questions. Questions like, student, are you 24 or older? Student, are you married? Do you have a child? Et cetera, et cetera. There's 10 or 11 of those questions. If you respond no or none of the above, then you'll get to a screen that says, based on your responses, you are considered dependent, which means now FAFSA needs your parent information. That will then open up sections 4 and 5, 4 being parent demographics, meaning, where you'll enter your parent's name, social security number, date of birth, etc. Parent financial section 5 is where they'll be asked about their 2020 income and or tax information. So that's how you add parent information to your FAFSA. Again, understand it's all about the dependency questions.
Yeah.
Those of you that answer no or none of the above to those 10, 11 questions, then FAFSA will go to sections 4 and 5 for you. However, if you're able to answer yes to one of those questions, let's say you were or are in a legal guardianship, then you are considered independent. You'll be able to skip sections 4 and 5. So that's what triggers the parent sections of 4 and 5 on the FAFSA.
Yeah, I would just say, from my experience in terms of helping students with this parent section, that is typically the biggest sticking point, one of the more confusing parts of FAFSA, is to just have your parents, if they can go ahead and gather those 2020 tax returns and have that, whether it's electronic, pulled up on their computer or their phone, or have it printed out, that's going to make that process a lot easier. You're also going to have the option to utilize the IRS data retrieval tool to retrieve your parents' tax information. That works sometimes. It doesn't always work. In the cases in which it does, it makes your process much easier. But just have your parents be prepared with that. The 2020 tax returns, if you can just have that at the ready, that's going to make your process easier.
Amen.
All right. I think we'll add one more. Guys, if you have any questions, type them in the chat in the questions box. Jason's here from TSAC to answer your questions. Got one more here. What if my parents selected I'm not going to file the IRS income tax selection on the FAFSA? I've worked with this student quite a bit. His name's Ben, and I've been working with him for a couple of weeks. And so this one, I had a feeling he might be here today to ask this question.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Ben, disclaimer, I am not a CPA. I don't do taxes. Right? Not Jason's IRS tax advice. All right. But here's the thing, Ben, and to anyone, understand, there are some students and whose parents, perhaps you're not required or they're not required to file taxes because they're disabled or they were unemployed in 2020. or understand from a tax perspective that you're only required to file if you make a certain amount of income. Again, this is where I go, I'm not a tax preparer. You and I, we all been, right? We can Google irs.gov. You can read what tax law says. So to the Ben that's asking this question, so if your parents fall into one of those categories where they're not required to, then that's perfectly fine. After selecting not going to file, on the next screen, it'll ask, well, for 2020, what was their income earned from work? If they didn't work, they'll put 0, right? All right. On the other hand, let's say they worked, and let's say for some reason they just haven't filed taxes yet. Please understand, if they did earn above a certain threshold, $18,000, $19,000, then they're going to be required to file taxes before you're ever able to receive financial aid. And FAFSA will actually display an error message. Like if you are a student who puts not going to file for the parent, and then when it says income earned from work, let's say you put, oh, well, my mom and dad made $40,000 in 2020. Well, FAFSA will display an error message to say, well, if this is true, you got to file taxes.
Right.
And just understand, you submit your FAFSA that way before you're ever able to be awarded any aid, promise, hope, Pell, loans, etc. That financial aid office will need to see that your parents did file their 2020 taxes. And that's something that you can go back and update after the fact. If they get it done here in the next month or 2 or 3, you can always go back in and amend that FAFSA after the fact.
Yep, that's always a tricky spot. I've had students in this situation occasionally, and it's best if they can say, yes, I filed taxes, and go ahead and just do that process. But like you said, there are some cases where that's not going to happen. All right, guys. Well, that's all the questions that I've got. If you have any additional questions, go ahead and get those in for me real quick in the chat or in the questions box, and we'd be happy to answer those. But as we're wrapping up here, Jason, do you have any parting advice, words of wisdom you want to share?
I'll say just, again, practice patience right now with the FAFSA in case you do have any errors. Don't let that discourage you from completing the application. If you get an error message, right, sometimes, Ben, take a breath, maybe log out, clear the cache, but stay logged out for a while. I will also say, unfortunately, sometimes the weekends are not a good time to do the FAFSA because I'm seeing some updates happening in the system where it's automatically down. So that might be some advice. I know sometimes, Ben, weekend might be the best time for a parent or student to do the FAFSA, but it may be where an evening might be best. And Ben, last thing, tighten up, right? Tighten up for any Tennessee Titans fans. Big playoff game tomorrow, so tighten up. Beat the Bengals tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be great. Hopefully there's a lot of blue in the stadium, not a lot of orange.
Right, that's right.
All right, just remember, guys, the deadline for the FAFSA, the 2022-2023 FAFSA, very specifically, what ended this week until March 1st. So you now have over a month to get that done. I say that in the same breath that I would say do not wait. Don't procrastinate. If I was you, I would pretend the deadline was still February 1st, just so that you go ahead and get that done and there's no risk of you forgetting about it. Tennessee Achieves is going to continue our targeted push to you every week to make sure that you're getting these requirements done. For those of you that are class of 2022 students that are on here, remember that your Tennessee Promise mandatory webinar requirement was also extended to March 1st. So those two deadlines coincide together. All of that has been moved to March 1st. Big news this week for that in terms of that. But huge thanks to Jason for hopping on. Appreciate TSAC and THEC's partnership in all of this work always. So huge thanks for taking in 30 minutes or so for hopping on here with us. But guys, remember, anytime you have questions, DM us on Instagram and we will get you connected potentially with Jason to get your questions answered. Thanks, Jason. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. Have a great weekend, guys.
See ya.